welcome everyone. Thank you for coming on the weekdays, busy weekdays. When the week. Yep. Yeah. So those who are someone. Oh yeah. Can you get the music? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear Coldplay.
Coldplay.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah. So welcome those who are joining this. This is a second session we are having in the series. If I call Be with the Best, just want to give you a little background. Someone was asking what is it about. So many years back, it's been always going in my mind that we should have a common platform, like back in India or back in Iran or wherever we are. We meet at crossroads, have tea together, and not just talk about how is the business. We exchange ideas, we learn from each other, and always thought that that's something we were missing. Maybe the way we all are so busy into our life and work. So thought about the platform where we learn from the best in their own field, and the best. When I say best, is not PhDs, not only doctors, not only somebody who has many accolades, though you have. So
I don't.
yeah, you do.
No offense taken.
You have. So the idea is we sit together, and it's more of an informal platform where I have some idea what I'm going to ask him, but please feel free participate. It's going to be beneficial for all of us. In the first session, we had Mr. Jan, and we learned a lot about life in general, how to not only how to earn and balance, but how to give away, how to donate, how to help the people here and across the globe, which was awesome. And today's Stephen Hart. So Steve, as we call him, Steve, not the whole name. So Steve is a good friend of ours now, with no choice given.
No, I've been kidnapped.
Yeah, kidnapped. And now I don't even ask. Can we meet? I said we are meeting, and thank you first of all. Thank you for being here, being for all of us, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of learning out of today's discussion. Steve is little background about Steve is running his own company since last 25 years. Company is called DedON. I love the name DedON, and how the company came about and all. Of course, we'll ask you. It's an architectural service company. Very interesting niche, I must say, that what you have established back 25 years. And the story goes like he was working with a one big company where you could work with architects and designers, and you could see that every time architect and designer saying, "What is the space? I don't have the dimensions, and I don't have the specifics of the space." So you realize that it's a big niche or rather void in the industry, and I still feel that it's big time. At the end user side, nobody knows about how to get that service. So he identified a company where they do a site survey of an existing or even the as-built drawing. They just keep that bridge between the owner and the architect or designer, so to say, or planners, and create that complete data system which helps the end users, whoever it is, whether it's Walmart, Home Depot, they understand the flow of the system, if I may say in a correct way. Yeah. And now in last 25 years, you've grown to 90 people or more company, and using an amazing system which we are using, we're calling as a cult system. They call Traction. So he's a champion of Traction entrepreneur operating system. We as a TWG also, we are trying to get into that system, but that's not about the system we are talking about today only. What really triggered me to have you here, and I officially told him I'm jealous, and we all are trying to get to that. He says I work 3 days a week. Yeah. And incredible. And I actually saw him working only 3 days a week. I said maybe he's showing off. Yeah. And Arash, we are all witness to it. So first of all, welcome to BWP stage.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
great to be here.
Thank you. And thank you. And I just want to ask about start with what is DedOn, how you thought about it, and give us a little perspective about how you came to this level where you are.
Yeah, okay, thank you. first of all, hello everyone. Very nice to be here. Thank you very much for your time tonight. In a nutshell, when I started DedON, I was 22. I was working for a millwork company that built fixtures for stores, which is just a fancy name for the furniture that goes into retail across North America. My first job there was to go out and measure and make sure things were going to fit, which is a pretty simple concept. But when you're doing custom millwork that may cost $20,000 a unit, it better fit when it gets there, kind of stuff, right? So that was the origin of the company. So we started out and we say me. For the first 6 years, DedON, with the big corporation of DedON, was me. And I traveled around the country working for various retailers and millwork companies, just measuring space. It was really that simple. There wasn't a grand plan or anything like that. It was just what I was introduced out of college. I got a job, and this is what they needed me to do. And the more I did it, it was a combination of, I'm pretty good at this. I can do it efficiently. I like the traveling and moving around the country. Then as time went on, it grew and grew. For the first 6 years, DedON was me. We're a lot bigger now. Obviously, we have employees across the U.S. and Canada. We've expanded into kind of the store planning and installation side of things. So really what we do in a nutshell is any retailer that wants to change their existing space, they come to us. We tell them what's there now, and then we help them take now to new state. Give you an example, like everyone knows a Home Depot. So Home Depot switches out the products in the store every month. So every Home Depot store is a little different. And what Home Depot does is they come up with this strategy on paper to say, we're going to do like a big push into light bulbs or ladders or something. And they send us that strategy, and we convert that into, this is how your floor plan changes. So they can then, we do the survey to say, this is what's existing. If we need to, then we plan the changes that have to happen within the store. And then they have a team that goes out and executes it. So currently we work for every one of our customers you've heard of, everything from the Home Depot and Walmart to the world, to the Starbucks, to the Chanel's and LVMH. It's quite a range of things, to hotels, to all kinds of things. And every one of them are just looking to understand their space and change it. So that's where we come in. We don't do what architects do. We don't do design. We don't do engineering. We don't stamp drawings, nothing like that. In most cases, we're feeding the information to the people that are ultimately going to make those decisions. So I know that sounds kind of like a strange little industry to be in, but as we've grown through the world, there's an unbelievable need for this. As right now, I think we have 10 full-time employees embedded in Walmart Canada. And we basically run their store planning team, the day-to-day changes to stores. And the reason they hire us is fundamentally, when we started out, just to kind of differentiate what we do, is I was a big fan of not relying on people's memory as the way that my business was going to work, right? So very early on, I developed two things. Number one, checklists. We're not going to memorize the scope of work. We're going to write it down. I know it seems super simple, but when you look in the world, people that just can't get it wrong, like pilots and doctors, the consequence is pretty severe if you get it wrong. They make checklists. That's how they do it. That's how they don't forget to put like a thing back in your body when they sew you up, right? So we created checklists, which evaporated the term I forgot. We haven't heard that in 25 years. It just doesn't exist. We don't forget anything, right? And then we have a level at the end of QA, quality assurance. We just double check everything. Just a second set of eyes, just double checks everything. And that costs a lot of money. I can tell you, that's an extraordinary expense. But over the years, what we did is we built a reputation of, we can just do it better than even the internal planning teams that, I'll just pick on Home Depot and Walmart because they're the biggest here, but we go head to head on projects, and our deficiency levels are maybe 0.5% to 1%. Theirs are like 20 to 30%, which is millions across. So it's not even an argument about what we do and how we do it. And when they come to us, and this will be the last part of my explanation because I can talk about this stuff all day, they come to us and they say, you come train our people so we can do this. And I'm like, it's not a training thing. We commit to doing things a certain way. You won't do that. You're a retailer and you look at your design team as a cost center. So you're going to try to squeeze every little efficiency out of it. And I think that's really short-sighted because in the end, we spend double the time that your team does. But that extra couple $1,000s saves you tens of thousands of dollars a store. And the sophisticated retailers, that's why we work in commercial, because they're the only ones who would know the difference.
This is a very interesting point. I want to go backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you studied architecture.
I did.
Yeah. How, I mean, some architects are here, designer, engineers. We would always think that, oh, we're done designing. We want to get into designing. Yeah.
Yep.
So you get how, so it's almost like, you are stopping somewhere to define that niche. And this is back in 25 years, 98 we are talking about. Yeah. How did you think of it? Because it's not that, oh, you can't get the job, that's why you started doing it. Yeah. So one is that niche, and I think I want to little paint this canvas for all of us. What we are facing in current situation is, be it a designing or any business, whether it's restaurants or sales, there's just a lot of people doing the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of different ways.
Yep.
When we offer our services, we've been compared with, of course, in our industry. How did you think about this, creating that niche? Where at the bigger statement is like Walmart, you're telling them, that you don't do it. I mean, Walmart hiring 10 people, not a big deal.
No.
So one is that, and this is all, I always use this term, is the train is already moving. You can't stop the train and say, oh, this is my niche, I'm going in.
Yes.
And this is what I want to know, and how did the whole idea of this niche came in the picture? One. And then when did you think about using this niche into a system?
Yeah, I would say I kind of backed into the niche. I don't think I had a conscious thought at 22 that, I can really read the industry and know where to go.
Exactly.
It just kind of presented itself in front of me, and then I started working there, and then next thing you know, you've got a year or two experience, or 5 or 10, and then people start talking to you, and you just happen to know that type of work better than anybody else. So I wouldn't say I necessarily had a strategic direction to get there. So that part's uninteresting from the standpoint of how I got into it. But I did recognize the value in it and what it could be, because I could see one thing I've always been good at is seeing 10 steps ahead. That's why I haven't gone to jail and things, because you could see something and go, I know where that goes, and that's a bad decision, right? I've been married 22 years, like things like that, and the state of my, right? Like you could see what one thing will lead to. And what I could see was, even when I was young, I could see that the work we were doing was so impactful downstream, mostly because when we interacted with architects and mill workers and such, their biggest complaint was, well, half the time they're guessing. I mean, what do you mean you're guessing? That's the one thing that struck me early on. You come out of college and they beat it India that everything's perfection. And then you go into the working world for the first time, and you're looking at these like, these are adults working. These aren't, I'm 20, right? They're my age now, so, right? It fits. And I would stop and I'd ask people that question. What do you mean I hope it fits? Well, we don't know. We don't have drawings. Hold on a second. We're shipping this thing worth $50,000 to Seattle and we hope it fits? It still happens, right? I'm like, dude, I'll get an airplane and go out there. Like, it'll be cheaper for me to go out there and check than it will be to ship it back and fix it, right? And so I could see the downstream value to it. So where we really, looking back at it, I don't know how much it was. I don't know that I did this at a business forethought or strategy, but my default is I'd rather have a great business than a bunch of money, because I think a bunch of money is a short-term goal. Absolutely. Right? And I know when I started the business, I was 22, so I was just saying earlier, we were just talking about over here, I'm like, the downside of starting a business when you're 22, it's like, seriously, what do I own? I have nothing. Like, you could take everything I own, you might not get $500. Yeah. Like, right? There was no downside, right? And if it didn't work, I moved in with my parents where I eat for free and stay for free. And so, like, the bottom wasn't that far. So as far as getting out on my own and doing it, and again, because it's a service business and it was my time, and I got to travel and see things, and it wasn't really a big kind of strategic thing as much as it was early. I love to travel, and I love people not telling me what to do, right? So I had the prerequisites to be an entrepreneur, right? Like, so yeah, sorry. Yeah, please. Yeah.
If your architect, creative people,
Yeah, sure. No. But my creative ego was elsewhere, and I didn't know it. I thought I wanted to do design exactly like that. Like everyone who gets into it, I want to be like Frank Lloyd Wright. Like I want to be the people that people come to and like, here's a pile of money, do what you do. Right? That was the dream. And the more I got into it, I realized what I actually like is I like organizing things and making them efficient. That's what I like about architecture. I'm a big fan of symmetry. I'm a big fan of like use every space. So yes, absolutely. But business offered the same opportunity, right? So as I started getting into it, where we really carved out our niche was I got to take that ego, because I'm not saying I didn't have it, but I got to take it in the direction of business. And I got freakish about the way our business ran.
Own it 100%.
Yeah. And we started doing things that no one else would do because it cost too much money. But I can tell you that I'm glad we started to do it that way, because now we have a reputation that we just tell clients, yeah, we can do that. And they're like, I believe you. Here you go. Yeah. And I think most clients see this as a high cost. The value. Yes. 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 Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm. No, and I would even say they're never going to get it. It's not their job to get it. That's how we took a look at it, because we had to convince retailers that, in a lot of cases, I'll give you a perfect example. We have some clients that are not sophisticated, just as far as knowing the difference between you do a good survey, which leads to good design, which leads to downstream things go to plan, right? You do a bad survey, which leads to design with questions, which leads to change orders, and your budget's a lot higher. And we have clients that'll happen, and then they'll come back and say your competition's $100 cheaper. Like, dude, we save you $100,000 a store. And you're gonna no, seriously, go with them, have fun. And then we work for, and I'll use this name, we work for Dollar General in the US. And they're a crazy business. The last 5 years, even during COVID, they've opened 1,000 stores a year. Wow. Okay, they're almost at 20,000 stores, the largest, and every single one of them is corporate. They can tell the difference because they build a store from beginning to end in 6 weeks. It's stupid. It is. They are so efficient. It's ridiculous. So when we started coming in and doing surveys, which led to good planning, which led to, they were 6 weeks and they'd make it. And with somebody else, they'd be 6 weeks plus 3 days. They said unacceptable. So slowly over time, the value got created. So one of our biggest challenges is we have to draw the picture for the client. And we have to ask the questions, because some, to be honest, they're just not sophisticated enough to know the difference. It'd be like giving my mom a Ferrari. What are you doing? Don't waste your time. She's going to drive 20, right? It's just, she won't know the difference, right? So if you find a client that'll know the difference, that's why we work in retail and commercial. What we like is people that do repetition. So we have a chance to prove out what we do and how it matters. And what we do is we ask a lot of questions about not only how will you know if we do a good job, and I even ask questions like your level of stress, the number of fires you have to put out. They should go down in a noticeable way if we do our job.
This is a big one. Yeah,
but we're bringing it to their attention on what to look for if we do our job well, rather than just expecting us. Because we could all sit in a circle that all do the same thing and talk about how important we are. But the only question is, does the client value that? Do they value it?
So right. I think this leads it, and I think we all, not only just business owner, it's about the commitment. You commit, you have to deliver.
Yep.
Yeah. If you say to the client that we are AAA company,
yep.
So that's a front stage. We call it a perceived value. Yeah, to the client, and that's what I also want to know. That what was that 6th year from 1 to 2 Steve happened, or only 1 Steve happened till 6 years? Yeah,
6 years was
just you. Mm-hmm. So what was that? And the second point is, of course, we all want to do the best, whether we are in the restaurant industry, design, or sales. When you commit to it, you better have to deliver also.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to know, or rather as a team, we want to know what is that formula. I mean, not for DedOn.
To commit to excellence on behalf of the team.
About them and then deliver.
And deliver.
And keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer the question this way. I would say the move from 1 to 2 people is the biggest jump you'll ever make. It's the hardest, right? Because when DedOn's one person, I literally know everything that's going on in the company at every moment. I can answer every question. I can react. It's easy. When it's 2 people, there's a bunch of stuff I don't know. And that is frightening when you first do it. Like, I'm putting my name on what you're doing. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, do I know what you're doing? Right? That whole thing. So
I can do better.
Yes. So the way that we have scaled that and look at sort of how I sleep at night now, or I think it's just about being super intentional. Like, we talk about being really high quality. Just saying that to people over and over is not intentional.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, we have to be better. We have to be better. We have to be better. You have no plan at all to be better if that's what you're doing. So what we did is we put things into our company like those checklists. I want to get rid of I forgot. So everybody has a checklist. Literally, for 20 years, every single project we do has a checklist. Project instructions. If someone changes the layer on a CAD file, it goes in that checklist. 100% of the time. We just made the rule. And it's a pain in the ass. Because it'd be a lot easier just to be like, hey, this changed, do that. But that's where mistakes come. It's like we're aware of it. And I think what we looked at was early on, I just made the commitment to myself that I'm going to do things the right way so I don't have to do them twice or 3 times. Because in the end, it's not really that hard to figure out the right thing to do in most cases. It's hard to commit to doing it. Yeah. On bad days, on rainy days, on days where you're tired, on days when it'd just be easier to send an email instead of going in and updating a drawing or a document and sending it.
And then across those 100 people.
But as a company, what we're telling people, retailers, is if you start the right way, it'll end better. If you don't live that internally, who am I? Right? A lot of the reasons we give when we ask a big client to trust our process, we explain it. We explain checklists. Like, they're dead simple. Like, we didn't invent them. But explain a checklist saying we'll never forget. If you call and say, I want to make a change to that project, just know that within minutes of that, we've updated a document. And now every employee in North America, 90 people now know what you just told us. Because we converted it into our language, and there's no missing it. And plus, we have a second set of eyes that checks it to make sure we actually did it. And everyone has a quality score, which they're measured against. So it matters. And when you have that explanation, a retailer goes, oh, that makes sense. Because what's the option? We're going to try hard.
So giving them, first is identifying, great. I think we all know what is good project, what is good thing. So we're just catching up. Steve is having a company, architectural service company, very niche. They're understanding he is 100 people. He's around the corner, by the way, and Meadowvine.
Every time you say it, we have more employees.
Yeah. Did I?
You just said 100.
So that's,
we're growing by the minute.
There you go.
Like, we've hired 10 people since I got here apparently.
That's happening today.
I might have to go. When we pass 200 employees, I gotta go.
I
got things to do.
Positive.
Okay.
I'll never say 80.
Okay.
So we're trying to learn how from 1 to 90, 100 happening. And what I really coming down to is, okay, what we all know. What is called good service. What is called a good design, good sales service, good dish when we are making. But the biggest thing is how is on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know how you are practicing it, but I think as a generic, we are practicing, and that not only in a business, in personal life also. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
How do you do it? What are the system? What are the ways? What do you suggest from 1 to 2? How that happens? And
how we get consistent?
Yeah. Sorry.
Checklists or project consistency. I'll back it up a step, because if we're going to talk about life in general, the company is as consistent as I tolerate. That's the real answer. So if I need something to be dead consistent, I have to be I cannot budge from that standard. I have to be, if I see something 1% out of line, it's not okay. It has to be corrected back. And which means for me to work 3 days a week, which is kind of the secret sauce of it all, is I started out with kind of this goal when I started the business. I said I wanted freedom of time, money, and the headspace to enjoy it. Because I saw those three things as freedom of time is great. Choose what to do with your time. Freedom of money is great. But if you don't have the headspace to enjoy it and you're always thinking about work, and I'll describe my career real quick this way to give you the background. In my 20s, I threw hours at everything. I worked like stupid, like 100+ hour weeks. The last year that I was just me, I had 225 hotel stays that year. That's how much I traveled. I still have hotel points. Like I'm lifetime everything. Like it's silly. And that sounds good unless you've done it. Anyone who's traveled for work, that's not a vacation. That is a grind, right? That's a grind. I see a few nods out here from frequent travelers. So I lost my train of thought. Where was I going on that? Saying, oh, in my 20s, I just threw hours at things. In my 30s, I didn't throw hours, but my head never stopped. I could not stop thinking about work. I just, all the time. And it bothered me because I had young kids, and I'm there with them, and I'm thinking about, like, how do we do that project? We're not there. And it bugged the hell out of me because one of the things I wanted to be really intentional in my life is I got married when I was 25, and we waited a few years to have kids. My daughter was born when I was 29, and the goal was I'm not traveling like that when we have kids. Okay, I need a year. Give me a year. I got to build this thing so I have employees. So we did that. That was 2003 to 2004. Did that. And I started making my life as I guess I go through my 20s. I just threw hours at it. My 30s. And honestly, I'm about to turn 48. And it was about when I turned 40 that I got super intentional with, I got to stop thinking about work all the time. This decade of my life, I have to get control of this. It is consuming. And at that time, we only had maybe 25, 30 employees. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. So essentially what I did is I got super ruthless with where I spent my time and where I spent my energy. And I started to distill down what is the most essential things I can do that only need me. I can't trust anybody else with it. What are the messages I have to consistently deliver? What are the meetings I have to be part of? What things do I have to watch and what things don't I? But more importantly, I made a do not do list. I made the thing, don't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Stay away from it. Trust people, step away. And I'm not saying it was easy to do, especially the do not do stuff. Oh my God. To trust people is the hardest thing in the world when it's your liability. Like, you are going to pay the price if they don't do it right. So then effectively what comes out of that need is you have to build some kind of system that gives you a window into the company that you can tell what's going on and you can see a fire if it's happening, but you give people enough autonomy and freedom to go do their work. And the number one thing that I'm very proud of, right person, right seat. If you don't do that, forget about it. Forget about it. You have the wrong person in any wrong seat, it doesn't work. Not even close. It'll take 90% of your attention. Any example? No, lots. Yeah. I've hired the wrong person so many times, it's not even funny. I can say, talking about sales as an example, because that's something we've dealt with. Yeah. Historically, we grew on word of mouth and very slowly, and we grew really quickly just after COVID because it was just a rebound of retailers are changing everything. So we got this automatic kind of reflex from COVID to just boom, we went to the roof, right? Yeah. And then we had to build a pipeline beyond that, just kind of rebound. I'm talking like early this year, so it's recent. And year after year after year, we just tried to solve sales. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? And the root always was we didn't have the right sales leader that could build a sales organization, and we didn't invest enough in hiring not only the right people, but enough of them, spending enough on marketing and everything else. We always put it off like we can't afford it, can't afford it. And then I finally looked at it and said, I don't know that I can afford not to. So I went the other direction and we tripled the investment in sales. Like almost quadrupled it. Almost exactly quadrupled.
And this is actually, it's kind of a gamble. No?
Oh, it's a gamble. But I looked at it saying, if we need to get things going, the gamble is you invest this much and expect big results. That became the gamble. So we just, again, intentionally, if we're going to be big at it, let's go big. So we hired someone at double the salary that we've ever paid for the head of sales. And we went from 3 people to 7 people. We hired a marketing company. We had serious investment, and our sales pipeline is 25 times what it was at the beginning of the year. It's completely different. We're having different conversations, more meetings. We were averaging maybe 1 client meeting a week. We're 15 right now. Like, it's just a completely different world. And we're getting inroads into companies that we just never thought we would. I'm not saying it's all translated into work, but it was just
more activities.
Yeah, almost everything that's worked is because we went all in and said we're committed to it. Let's go.
So when you are hiring, you know that person is right
No,
for the right seat.
no, you don't. And I don't have a secret formula for getting it right on the original hire. I really don't. The best we do that is we have core values, and I know a lot of companies, those are hokey or kind of whatever.
Coming to that.
Our core values are legit. These are the people I want to work with. That's what these describe. The characteristics of the type of people that we want to work with. Like, one of them, the third one out of 5 is do what you love and love what you do. My biggest pet peeve is working with people who hate their jobs. Like, the food court on a Tuesday afternoon, I got to get away from the people that work there. They make me nuts. Like, if you hate your job, you can't be here. That's fine. You can hate your job, but you just can't hate it here. I'm not saying every day is sunshine and roses and perfect, but so if there's just a generally grumpy person, I just don't want to work with them. It's pretty easy. So we tend to have a fairly upbeat. I'm not saying, hey, we lost $100,000. Yay, great. I'm not saying pretend. I just mean you're up for your job. This is your job. You're up for the challenges of it, and you accept it, and you come to work, and you're pleasant, and you want to work with people, and you want to do the job. So as an example, really quickly now, if someone is not a fit, I don't even have to say a word. Everyone around, they're like, they're not a fit. I'm like, I know. I'm just waiting for the manager to do something about it. And I can say now, this has been a process. We did not just jump into this. But if someone's a wrong fit, they are gone inside a week from that determination. And because I guess we've just had too many experiences. We hang on to someone who doesn't want to be here. It's wrong person or wrong seat. And looking back, you're like, look at the consequence of hanging on to the poison. Right? It's poison. And it affects others. Worse, your best people get worn down by this. So we made a commitment to this is who we are. And I'm like, we've had company meetings just like this. But the downside of these core values, if you don't align, you're out right now. Like, that's it. Well, what if I'm working on a big project? We'll deal. I'd rather deal with that operational issue than a cultural issue. Because in the end, I don't run the day-to-day of the business at all. I'm at 10,000 feet every day. I'm looking at my job is a year to 3 years from now. I'm working on the future. Right?
So 2 things. One, you said one of the core values. You can share the 5.
No, 5? Yeah, okay. Our first core value is do what's right, not what's easy. That is a really, really hard one to do. Because do what's right, not what's easy. What's right's defined as what's best for the greater good of the company. Okay. A healthy company takes care of us all. A sick company makes all of our lives not as good, right? Our second core value is evolve and grow. If someone still wants to work on a typewriter instead of a computer, that's probably not going to work, right? Our industry evolves too quickly. Software changes. Services. We're in laser scanning. That changes every 2 weeks. It's ridiculous how fast that changes.
And any business for that.
Right? Anyone who just thinks, I don't want to learn new stuff. I don't know. Go work in a museum. I don't know. Not here, right? Love what you do and do what you love is our third one. Own it is number 4. Own it is both from if something's your job, we want determination and perseverance to get it done. We know there's obstacles. That's the point. That's why human beings in the seat, because it's not automatic. The world doesn't care about your success. You're going to have to fight for it. And then a brick wall is going to jump up and you've got to jump over it somehow. That's the job, right? That's why any human being has a job is because it's not automatic. Computers do automatic things. We know exactly what's going to happen, right? And then our last one, now that I'm on the spot, I'm not thinking about it. Oh, nonstop client focus. a lot of the times we get into details of things, and one of the biggest questions is, stop, why are we doing this? You got to return to, like, we call it the why behind the what, but why did the client ask us to do this? We're so into ourselves and all the crazy things we can do. Sometimes we lose track of, like, what did they even ask for? Like, we're down rabbit holes.
We always internally see that sometimes being a designer, we forget we become a facilitator.
Yes.
Yeah, and we always talk about as a team.
Yeah. And it's amazing how much clarity you get on people when you just apply those core values. We use those as the characteristics of people we want to work with. Yeah. And the other side of that is they have to be right fit for the seat they're in, right? And that's the whole gets it once a capacity to do it thing. And if you, to be honest, that decisions, I think everyone I've ever talked to, you look yourself in the mirror, that's not a tough call. You know. Right people, right seat, you know. The hard part's saying something, doing something about it. Saying no, right? Yeah. Which comes back to our first core value, do what's right now, it's easy. I can't kick a can down the road, I got to deal with it. Yeah. And I'll tell you that we call it kind of, when people join our organization, we say that first core value, it's learned courage. You're going to have courage to do hard things, especially if you want to lead. You want to be on the leadership team? Every week, here's something you don't want to do. You got to do it. This is the greater good of the company. Excellent. Yeah. Right? And the more we do those things, like this year, we won Great Place to Work for the third year in a row. We've taken it 3 times. It's an organization that, which is, thank you. And that I would say speaks more to the culture, which is way beyond me. I don't create the culture. The team does, and I can tell you, with that many employees, that's the team policing itself at this point. So it's ingrained. Oh, yeah. I'll tell you, inside a week, there's probably half our company inside a week. If I was like, okay, are they a fit? And the whole room will go yes or no. It's rarely a discussion. So that's super rare.
That's a courage. Maybe that's the ownership. The
empowerment. Well, I think what employees need to see is that you're willing to do it. Yes. And that you're willing to say this is what's going on. Like, as I talk here today, I talk pretty openly about the decisions we have to make. Like, a few months ago, we had to do some layoffs, and I have a town hall, address the team. This is why we had to do it. Legit, right? Revenue's down. It's not going to come up for their 6 or 8 weeks. This is what it would cost to carry people, which would then put other jobs at risk, which would be compounding. So we're transparent with it, and people understand it. And again, because our core value is to the greater health of the company, everyone knows why we're doing it. And as long as your decisions are in line with the values, and that's the hardest part about leadership, you can't take a day off with it. You can't take an easy way around. You put the core values out there, this is where we're going. You better do it. Because it doesn't matter what you say, right? Like, it's like all of us as kids, it doesn't matter what your parents tell you. You learn more from what your parents did, right? They could say, don't swear, and then they turn around and drop 5 F-bombs, like, right? Like, what are you going to do, right? But that, I think, is the thing that I'm really glad we stuck to. Because again, it comes back to my own selfish, if I want to have freedom of time, money, and the headspace to enjoy it, I have to know what's going on at work, which means I have to trust people. I have to be able to predict what they're going to do, so we have process and systems to predict that. I have to have people in seats that I can look in the eye and go, I have your back, and you have mine. Yes. Right? Like, we have quite a bit of, our turnover is exceptionally low. Like, we measure regrettable turnover. We're less than 2% a year. Like, it's low.
And right? In an industry like this?
Oh, the industry is 15. Architecture is not really high. Or really low in that regard. It's not good as an industry, but I think a lot of it is just right people, right seats. I could talk all day about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, please feel free to give the input. I got the what part, how we are getting it, establish the core values. And it's not only work. I mean, talking about in general. Someone wants to lose weight. Yep. Want to do certain things for the food.
Yeah.
It's coming to that. Now, this what, especially in work, once we establish the core values, what we want to achieve is how we want to get there. How, and on a consistent basis.
Or where you want to go.
And where you want to go. So that's something. And now in this economy which is going around, what's uncertainty happening, it's in business environment, the canvas is changing crazy. Yeah. So if I say, oh, my goal after 1 year is this, it's changed maybe next month, next week.
Yeah.
So how do you implement, and what are those? I mean, I don't want like 1, 2, 3 tools, but if there are any tools which we can use to establish our measure, where we are going, and see whether we are achieving or not.
Yeah, so everyone's heard of Traction. If you know Hammond, you've heard of Traction. It's a book. Okay, maybe you haven't talked about it. Maybe you have. I don't know. Traction's a book written many years ago that we've been following for about a decade, and it's a lot of what you're talking about is defining where you're going and then having real intentional ways to get there. Intentional is, by the way, like my favorite word. I just want to take as few steps to get there as possible because, through my 20s and 30s, I took a ton of steps to get not very far.
Yeah.
Right. So we do something where we lay out like our vision in writing. Again, if you're going to ask a bunch of employees to come along for the ride, first question, if they're getting on your bus, where are we going? Right. That's a pretty legit question, and they deserve a pretty decent answer to that. So we write that out. Here's our 10-year. This is where we're going. 3 years. This is where we're going. 1 year. This is where we're going. This quarter. This is where we're going. Right. So we do that exercise so that we can get down to what are we focusing on now? Because the only thing you can do today is the most important thing you can do today. You can't win your 10-year goal today or lose it today, right? So really when we're talking about vision, we're laying out different layers of how far we're going. And I know that sounds super complicated. We're talking about like less than 100 words. Like revenue approximately we're going to be in. So for example, I say our 10-year goal is super vague. We just say X dollars, right? 40 million. That's my number in 10 years. Okay. All you know from that is, okay, we're going to grow between now and then. Because that's all I'm really trying to tell you. 10 years, who knows? Like, who knows where we're going to be in 10 years? Everything will be upside down and different. I'm not going to pretend to have a crystal ball. I don't even need to know, right? Because we're going to change 100 times between now and then anyway. So then the idea of a 3-year is, okay, 3 years is probably, in my opinion, about as far out as you can look with any kind of plan. Like if you're going to start to we're going to do these things. This is what the business is going to look like, right? Beyond 3 years, I don't know how to do it. Like, what's the world look like in 5 years? I don't know. So 3 years feels about the furthest. And again, you're doing that so you can take a snapshot and say, okay, this coming year, how far towards that 3-year are we going to achieve this year? And then we make some kind of plan. And again,
I'm drawing my parallel to lose weight. I mean, we can all pick whatever you want. Yeah?
Sure.
So if I want to lose weight in 3 years, 6 kgs. Okay. So I'm drawing parallel.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So if you say 6 kilograms in 3 years, then you turn around, okay, what part of that are you going to do this year? Okay, you're just starting out. Let's say we're going to do 1 kilogram this year. Okay. Then you break it down to quarters and you say, okay, let's say a quarter kilogram per quarter. Okay. Right? Then we break it down. Now your goal is a quarter kilogram. Because you can't work on 6 at one time. Yes, that's the goal. Okay. So now that the goal is a quarter or 1/4 kilogram in the next 3 months. Then you look at it and you just simply say, okay, what's the strategy to make that goal? Right? Okay, I'm going to, because it's only a 1/4 kilogram, a moderate amount of exercise and a little tweak to the diet, no chocolate cake at midnight, that kind of stuff, right? So you make that kind of plan, and then what you do is you have some kind of scorecard every month or every week to say where's the progress, just in case you go plus 0.5, 0.25 kilograms. Then you're like, whoa, wait a minute, you're going the wrong direction. We need a correction right now.
So
measure. Yes. So we're 1 week into a quarter. There's 13 weeks in a quarter. There's 12 weeks left. We know we're going in the wrong direction. We have the chance to change right now. Because if you don't, what ends up happening is you slippery slope all the way to the end. And then the night before, you're like, wait, I got to lose half of. That's ridiculous. You just wasted 13 weeks, right? So we have weekly meetings where we sit down and we look at a bunch of things, but one is a scorecard of indicators that would tell us whether we're making progress towards our goals or not. I want to know right now so I can adjust. Because if you're going to be intentional about it, here's the thing. If you're going to make 10 years, you better make your 3. If you're going to make 3, you better make this year. And if you're going to make this year, you better make this quarter. And if you're going to make this quarter, you better win this week. Because you can recover from a missed week. It's very hard to recover from a missed quarter or a missed year and still make progress. So we each break it down into chunks, but we plan starting way out here and work it back. And I'm not so worried about the exact numbers because the numbers are directional to drive behaviors and to give you reasons for doing things. Like if we say we're going to double, like I've had this conversation with people. We want to double the company next year. I'm like, okay, do you really want to double the company this year? No, I want to. I know. I'm like, I know it sounds good in a business magazine to say we're going to double in a year, but here's what you really mean. You're going to have to put a ton of money in. You're going to have to know right people, right seat. You're going to have to identify that in the first month of the year. You do not have time to wait on someone who's not in the right seat because you're going to miss your year if they're not the right person. You're going to have to generate incredible revenue gains very quickly, which means an extraordinary investment. You're going to have to go to every trade show. You're going to have to pay for meetings. You're going to have to do everything you can to do that. And at the same time, you're going to put a massive stress on the organization, operationally and financially. So because I'm an intentional person, like, yeah, is that what you mean? Well, no, I don't want to do that. Well, then you don't want to double next year because that's what doubling looks like. As long as you get intentional with it, then you start to make plans that are more realistic. Right? If you have $1 million to waste, then go nuts. But I just like being intentional with it because then you end up facing the reality now, not later. Like that's our whole business. Like let's measure up a building and take a look at it because if it's not right, shouldn't we know that now, not in the middle of construction? Right? So that whole pattern makes sense to me in business planning and everything. Yeah.
So I have a scorecard. I almost look at it like a stock exchange. Yeah, it shows you how it's going. Measure it. If you measure, you can achieve. If you can't measure,
you have to. I'll say it a different way. You have to know what good looks like. That's the standard, right? So in sales, there's sometimes sales quota, or it's number of meetings, or it's number of phone calls. It's something. Operations is some kind of quality measure, or like on time, something. You have to know what good looks like because one of the burdens of leadership is I think you have to know where you're going and you have to know what good looks like. You have to know your standards and be able to articulate them. And we do that through scorecards as a number. Everyone has a number that they have to hit, at least one, maybe multiples. And it's not hit that number or you're fired. It just means if a number turns red, meaning it's below a standard, it raises a flag. There's something we got to talk about right now. Not a month from now, not anything. And then each week we get together and we just look at the biggest issues. Again, we could have 10 flags in the air. We're talking about 2 or 3 of them. Because again, you don't even need to solve everything. You just need to solve your biggest issues. You got to know what they are. You got to know what your biggest issues are, and you got to solve them forever. And that's, strictly said, it takes a ton of courage because the root cause is almost always a person. 95% of the time, root cause is a person.
Created by a person, destroyed by a person.
Yep. That's okay. We're not beating people up. We're just saying something's not where it needs to be. The organization, we're just honest about it, open and honest about it, and say, there it is. What are we going to do about it? What's standing between you and the $100,000 worth of sales you have to make? Right? Scary answer, you're not the right person in the right seat. But if that's what it really is, and you're serious about getting it, then that's where your vision is really put to the stress test. Are you willing to replace someone to get there? Well, because the answer is no, then don't set those targets. Right? Because if you're going to set the target to get there, then are you getting there? Or is this a social club and we'll just get as far as this group can take us? That's okay too. Let's just be real about what we're doing. Right? Like, I have that discussion internally. Like, be careful with lofty goals because you might not like the journey. Right? Those companies that go from here to here, it's either dumb luck or, man, some people had some days. Right? There was some tough days to get there. And there's not a right or wrong. There's not a right or wrong. There's just you're doing it or you're not doing it. The trouble in leadership is when some days you're doing it and other days you're not. That's confusing. They try to follow that leader. Like, we're going there no matter what. Okay, well, that person didn't do their job and it hurt us. Yeah, but they're trying. Well, are we going there or not? Because the real answer, they're not going there. We replaced them. We're still going there. Oh, okay. Now everyone's on notice. Okay, this is a serious organization that sets serious goals.
I love one analogy which Steve always talk about is when we talk about the ownership. Yeah, I mean, let's take a client-designer relationship. Yeah, where you've given us a project to do it. It's our job, whether we are doing it right or not. And as a commitment on the client side, one scenario, whether the client is doing the right things or not. So, we as an internal team, we use this analogy of a bus, and he gives it so right that if I am a designer who's doing the design even from the client's requirement, I own that design.
Yep.
Yeah. So I own that bus. I have to go and have that steering wheel in my hand. Then I can't question the client. Why did you give me this wheel? I can't question the client that why this bus doesn't have a rear wheel. If you own that bus, and this is, I think it's not only just work. I realize, yeah, it's across.
Yeah.
It's tough to see when you ride the bus and you realize, oh my God, there's one wheel missing. Yeah, and I'll always blame the client. You gave me the wrong bus. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not blaming you, but in general. Yeah. So, and this is where I realize the importance of ownership. So,
Yeah.
this is excellent. But please feel free to ask question. I don't want to just ask all the question my own. I have one point before we open up. I'm wondering 3 days.
Yeah.
How? Yeah, I mean, love it.
It's sorcery.
Please, yeah.
Mhm. Yes. Mhm. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
2 working days.
Yeah. Not work. Relationships and health, mostly. So let me explain the 3 days a little bit. It's legit. I work 20 to 24 hours a week, tops. If I'm traveling, it might be a little different the odd time, but that's dead consistent. And why I got to this place and how I stay there, I guess, is the interesting place. But it really is getting down to what things need me and what things don't. Because here's what I do. Let me explain what I do during those 3 days, because they are the most important things that I could possibly do to my current view of things. And otherwise, everything else I'm getting in someone else's way, or it's lower value to me as a human being than taking care of myself physically and making sure that I have relationships and not being stressed. My stress level rarely gets above 2 or 3 on a scale of 10 because I take the downtime. I have that intentional time. So let me explain. So during those 3 days, that weekly meeting that we have, it's 90 minutes long. It's with my leadership team. That is the spearhead of my entire week. I can tell you in that 90 minutes, I know everything that's happening in the company that I need to watch. I know every issue that's going on. I can just look at the scorecard. I know what people are doing. I know what they're not doing. I know what our priorities are on a weekly basis. It's every Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning until noon, and there's 4 of us in the room. My head of operations, sales, and finance, and the 4 of us go through the scorecard, go through what our priorities are. Are we online, offline? And then we just go through our list of issues. What are the biggest issues facing the company right now? And I can tell you this honestly, we solve them forever, which means we get to the root of the issue, right? Like there's no such, we're dealing with symptoms day to day. Everything's a symptom. Like this isn't working. If someone comes to me and says the photocopier is not working, I'm not looking to fix the photocopier. That's just to give you a sense of what you're doing if you go to root. I'm wondering, how did an issue like this get to this table? First of all, does anyone own like making sure the photocopier is operational? If so, why didn't they fix it? And do they have a manager in this room? How come you're tolerating it not being fixed? Do we have a standard that says how fast it needs to be fixed? Like, I'm just digging at the root saying, how did it get here? Because solving it forever is solving the root issue that caused it to come up in the first place. Kind of like your finger hurts and someone's like, well, take an aspirin. What have you done? You kick the can down the road, tomorrow it's going to hurt again, right? You go, well, let's get an x-ray. Like, let's figure out why it hurts. Because if it's broken and then you put a cast and then you're like, okay, now that's a permanent solution. So we look at business issues the same way. I'm curious. What I'm looking to do is create an organization that issue doesn't come up again. Not solve that issue, to create the organization that solves it without it ever coming to me again. So that's 90 minutes. That is, honestly, if I just did that, I could probably get away with that for months. That is massively helpful to the organization. Because what I'm doing is I'm removing the biggest obstacles that only I can remove. Things like policy decisions or massive pricing decisions or things that are just no one else has the authority to solve, I can solve. Interdepartment issues, finance wants one thing, sales wants another, operations and sales are going back and forth. I'm the referee, steps in and goes, this is what we're doing. After a discussion about it, we can solve that as an issue as a group. So that's 90 minutes. Then another 3 hours of my Wednesday is 3 to 5 hours is one-on-ones with the other members of the leadership team, head of operations, finance, and projects. And all we're going through is what are your priorities for this quarter that are already documented in our vision, rocks. They're already there. So show me the progress on the rock, which is, won't get into the whole traction thing. It's not a cult, but a rock is just a fancy word for your top priority this quarter. It's usually a big solution to an issue or moving the company forward in some meaningful way. So it's like a project you got to get done during that period of time. So we go through that, going, show me the progress, and I say, show it to me, right? I want to see it. Because another little quirk I have is I believe thinking is writing. There's a very limited amount of thinking you can do, just keeping it all in your head. When I think, like pages come out. And most of it's gobbledygook. But when you edit and go through it, there's some good stuff in there that then you can take and think further on it and develop ideas. So everyone knows if you're thinking about it, you can show me. Because there's actual words on pages. What are your thoughts? Right?
On the pages?
Yeah, like how have you evolved that thought? Anyway, so I asked them, I want to see progress on your rocks. We go through any department level issues that they have and say, what's stopping you from getting where you need to get? And just generally a check-in, like, how you doing? Like, what's going on in your personal life? Because here's the reality, the whole person comes to work. And once in a while, you got to step back expectations because someone's going through some stuff, right? And that's the real world, that's life. And my belief is kind of the same one professional sports takes. If you have a superstar that's coming along and they have a temporary dip in performance, but you expect them to return to form in a few weeks, like, sprained my ankle, take a few games off, you'll be good again. We'll support that all day long. But if someone has a dip in performance with no end in sight, that's a completely different issue. That's a completely different issue. Yeah. No matter how it happens, even it's not about fault or blame, but that's the consequence to the business. So I like to stay real close. Just where's someone's head at? Are they in the game? Are they into this? And then the other thing I check in is how many hours you're working. Show me your calendar. Because your calendar, that's what you're paying attention to. I can tell what's important to someone by where they're spending their time. So again, my expectation for them is they're spending their time with their teams, making sure that they're spending time on their rocks and they're measuring their teams properly. So again, I have a view of the entire company, all the expectations, where people are performing against those expectations, and what we're tolerating, what issues are persistent that we're unwilling or unable to solve. And I'll tell you, in 25 years, well, let's admit 10 years we've been running Traction, there's not a single issue we haven't been able to solve. None. What issue? The worst case scenario, you're afraid to do it, but you have to, one way or another. Like even deciding not to is a decision. So you can solve anything you want. So now what am I up to? Almost a day. What do I do with the rest of my time?
It's like 8 to 9 hours.
Oh yeah, no, okay. So Monday, so I work half a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in the office. So I live in Aurelia, about 2 hours north of here. I come down, I spend all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday in the office. So I'm remote on Mondays, remote on Thursdays, where I do half days each of those days. So Monday morning, it sounds crazy, but I go for a 3-hour walk, 2 to 3 hours. When the weather sucks, there's a really good indoor track, and I think work. And I dictate ideas into my phone. And while I walk, right now it's outdoors, there's awesome trails, it's been sunny for like a month straight. It's the best. Fresh air, exercise, mechanically, I think way, way better when I'm moving on the move. It's just oxygen to the brain. It's just night and day. So I literally just walk and talk into my phone with different ideas. I have Google Docs on my phone, so I can just go into a document, write a bunch of stuff. Again, I would say that's the part of my week I'm dissecting what's most important, what do I need to pay attention to. Because again, I find when you get out and just do it, here's the thing. Like I'll say it this way. I hate North American work culture, if you haven't guessed by now. The busyness thing, it makes me nuts. Like, it's ineffective. Science has proven it over and over. It makes us all crazy. It robs us of our health and our relationships and stuff that really matters. It's nutty. And it's all our own fault of what we're paying attention to. especially someone in my seat. I got to pay attention to whatever I want to. That's the whole idea. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, I'm going to take a couple hours every Monday, and two birds with one stone. I'm going to walk and get some exercise, which is good. And I'm going to think work without any distractions. And I'm going to think about what are the biggest, most important things. And I'm telling you, the clarity I get when I'm alone and walking or exercising, night and day. So that's a couple hours. And then I might write. And again, I probably have about 6 to 8 hours structured a week. And then the rest of the time is either big client calls. Sometimes I'm still the best pitch person to come on and pitch like a big brand on sales, but that's a request. That's the sales department inviting me and me saying yes. I can say no, and if they invite me on Fridays, it's no. And if they invite me on Mondays and Thursdays, maybe.
It's your sales.
It's my choice whether I'm in it or not. And it's not but you can do it. Yeah, but I also send the message that I don't trust my sales team if I have to be on the call. Yes. Because lots of things get closed without me. And again, I'm trying to build an organization that doesn't need me. Now, that means I have to be involved and present sometimes. And I'd say the other part that I get involved in is when there's a part of the company not working the way I want it to. Yes. So I go meet with a team. Like yesterday, our sales team, their sales process was confusing to me. Process to me is like, if I read the process, I know how the department's going to work. It's predictable. So now I can look at the business and go, well, if I know how that works, I can predict other things in the business. I know that probably comes off as more complicated than it actually is. But like if you know what the proposal form is and what's in it, then you know, okay, yeah, we covered that risk, so we don't have to worry about it over here. That kind of thing. So it was just a confusing document. So I got everyone in a room for 2 hours. We went through the document. We cut it from 9 pages to 3. And now it's something they can actually follow. And everyone agreed it's more clear and they're more able to follow. So again, I think my skill within the company is I can super simplify things because I spend all my time at 10,000 feet. So my 3 days are partially structured. But the reason I do that, so long-winded, I like to give the background of why. So I'll answer your question. What do I do with the other time? My priorities in life are health and key relationships and professional third. And if I'm going to say that out loud, because I have friends, health is most important. Dude, you're 200 pounds overweight, right? When's the last time you even looked at a gym? Like, who are we lying to here, right? Yeah. We go way back so I can be honest with them. But if my view of things is, if I say something's important, how would that look? How does my calendar look? Where I spend my time and where I spend my money, that to me that's what's important. So if my wife doesn't work, she's at home, we spend a ton of time together. There's no complaint about like you never spend time with me. She hasn't said that in a decade. Probably regrets that now. But we spend time together. Like I just dropped my daughter off at university in September. She's going to Guelph. My oldest is 18. My youngest is 14. And I just dropped my daughter off. And as I'm walking out, there's a couple there, and they just dropped off their kid, and they're kind of crying. And the mom says, "Oh, don't you wish you spent more time with them before they grew up?" And I was thinking about that as I was driving away, going, "No, I actually don't have that regret. I walk my kids to school every day in elementary school. Walk them to school every day that I was home. Right? I was there in the morning for them with breakfast. I was there most nights. Weekends we spent together. We've been on trips. I didn't miss anything because I was there. So those days, as much as they seem unintentional, the really long-winded root of it, when I was 16, I worked at an old age home, and all the people that were there told me two things. Take care of your body, take care of your relationships. No one ever said a word about make more money at work. And it scared the hell out of me. Because when they looked into your soul when they said things, they were like, no, I mean it. I'm 90 and my life sucks, right? Because I'm ill and my relationships are fragmented. And I don't know why that stuck, but for real, I don't want to get old and have that regret, because regret is a very heavy weight compared to the discipline of doing it. Anyway, I could talk about this stuff all day. It's very intentional, and I can tell you already, I'm 47. The benefits I'm getting from that intentionality, even over a decade, are massive. Massive. It's really, really cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, please.
And not question it, but I want you to talk about from an ops person to an ops previous ops person.
Love ops.
Ops.
Yeah.
What you talk about measurables.
Yes.
And AI don't do anything in terms like measurables that your trust building factors.
Yep.
That's how you sort of say it's that's how we find out. We talk about it more about.
Yeah, measurable. It's a number that quantifies good, right? It's like someone saying, "I want more money." Right? Here's $1. You got what you wanted. Well, how much more money do you want? Right? Let's get specific. And again, I overuse the word intentional, but when you're specific with numbers, first of all, the burden's on the leader to set a real number. You set something astronomical and someone keeps hovering here, then you're setting the message you're going to tolerate poor performance or underperformance. You can't do that.
Setting up with a failure,
right? And if you set it too low and someone's overachieving, well, is that a real goal? So you really have to have the mindfulness to set it and change it and arrange it so it's a real reflection of, no, this is what I expect. And then real numbers of performance will go somewhere, and all you're really looking for is the early warning sign that you have a problem. That's really what it is. And you talk about trust, but just because some meeting, if you do that right, that is, if you start anywhere with that, a weekly meeting, where you just look at your numbers, look at the prior, are we on track? And what are we going to do about it if we're off track? You have that meeting once, forget traction, you just do that once a week. The biggest difference, I think, for a company is A, being able to identify your biggest issues, and B, being able to solve them for others. That's legit. You're a legit company if you can do that. If not, you're avoiding what I did early, so I know it. And when I talk to a lot of business owners, this is the thing that we get around to is the thing that is going to be the biggest success. You know what it is, but it's a pain in the ass and it's going to hurt. Mostly it's someone in the wrong seat, and for some reason it's too hard to remove them. And when you can get past that as BS, you just go to another level. Right? So the system of traction actually doesn't take that much time. It's the discipline to follow it, no matter what, that is the challenge. That is just the challenge.
So Steve, I just share our experience. We got introduced last December, and we got into it. We went through it January, February, and another great part I must say, and I'm glad that I'm touching that part, is having the knowledge in the book and walking the talk, and you help other person walk the talk. I think it's very rare. So I want to, from me in my heart, I want to say thank you because it is very important. It's not about business. He's here voluntarily. He spent a lot of time with us. Arash, we give our all a good example, and it's so much helpful. So few things when we got into it, we started looking at the things. We put scorecards in the picture. We did where we are. And one of the biggest thing I did was that we got so much uncomfortable. I mean, I thought, what am I doing? I've been doing this for so many years. We saw the number. I said, why the hell things are not working? And this is one thing, as you said also, that you will see the discomfort. So one is we need to be comfortable to be with that discomfort. Yeah. Not having that sleepless nights, which I tried, but it's still difficult. But now at least we have identified, as you said, issues are identified. Yeah. And the good part, and we all need that mentor. We are happy, we are lucky to have you to say that it's not going to happen overnight. No. Yeah. And this is a big thing. If you want to go for a greater good, as latest today only we were having discussion that how do we make sure our biggest concern is client first. Project even above it comes to client, because sometimes client doesn't know that we don't have. So how do we? And the big thing is, I'm happy that Sukh is here, Reed is here, you guys are here, all the different people and yes, classes of people who are actually making this project. We realize we cannot do that alone. So now with the new plan, we are having everybody together. Yeah. So this itself is opening up so many avenues. Yeah. So if it all we attend the issues, I will tell you from my experience, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a big discomfort. that's what they say. Yeah, the bump is no come.
The discomfort's coming either way. It's either on your terms or on not.
Or
I'd rather
choose. End of the day is you would say that I worked so hard. Why? So this was a really good. So I still we're talking about that 5 days. It is. But there's no right or wrong. I'm not saying not everyone in the room has to do what I'm doing. I'm doing it because it works for me. Like don't copy somebody. That's the worst reason to do something. I don't know what works for you. Take Sunday off at least. Start there. There you go. Start it Sunday. 1 day a week ago. Anyone? Please. Yeah, please.
So there are many things in business that you can't control.
Yeah.
Like COVID happened, recession. How do you react to those? And like, how do you make sure that your team adjusts to this? Like the morale goes down. Let's say, recession is coming, so even if the sales are down, it's just industry wide.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you make sure, that you adjust to those, those factors and still have realistic goals?
Yeah. I would say again, I look at this as my job is to build a company that can overcome things. I don't have to have the answer. Like COVID, I had no answer for that. We had a huge 2020 plan. 2019, we were like growing like a weed coming into 2020. Like this is amazing. March was going to be a killer month. Like, sorry to pun. And all of a sudden, this thing happens that's impossible. Like COVID, that's impossible. The world can't shut down. Like, that's okay. That's insane, right? Like, right? So, but what I would say going into it is we're good at solving problems. We're good at going head on into our biggest issues. That's what we're good at. So throw something in front of us. It's going to be uncomfortable. Like it sucks, but okay, let's get to it. What are we doing? So admittedly in 2020 it took us until April to, okay, this thing's real. And we adjusted our forecast for the year. And we got real about what was happening. And our revenue dropped by about 75%. But luckily we had some customers like Walmart and Home Depot that are essential services. And we just kept turning with them, but and then the government employed the rest of our employees in Canada and the States. But we looked at it like, well, when we hit something like that, number one, we over-communicated with the team and let them know what we were doing. And being real, this is where we are, and we're in an environment we can't predict too much in the future. Like we're driving in fog, so we're slowing down. I have no idea what's a week ahead of us, no idea. I said that out loud because I really didn't know. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the information at hand and make the decisions we need to make. And that's all you can say. And then that was the challenge to everybody. Well, what are we going to do if this happens? When we get to the place we have to make that decision, we're ready to decide. We'll decide and we'll act, right? My big challenge to everyone who works for me is you have to be able to think, decide, and act within the confines of your role. That's what I'm asking you to do. So start thinking about things, but you don't have to solve for 20 outcomes because it's a fool's errand. Who knows what's going to happen? Like even we're looking at, people are telling us the economy's doing this, that, the other thing. We work in a world of renovations. I'm not worried about next year. The world's changing. There's a lot of change. Retail space? Oh yeah, retail's done. Yeah. It's just repurposing. We went through this in 08, 09. We said retail was gone. Yeah, whatever. There's more stores opening. There's different things. They overbuilt malls. They're being changed into other things. We're looking at doing surveys for Amazon to turn old Sears stores into warehouses. There's always a reason to look at space and do things. And I think it's about building your team's ability to solve the problem at hand today for real. I think the challenge is when teams kick the can down the road or don't want to do it. It's hard today, so let's not do it. That muscle of solving the problem today, that's the thing that I think carries you through those really impossible times. It's not about if we're successful in the next 2 years or 3 years, it's not because we had a crystal ball to know what's going on. It's because we reacted and made decisions in real time that made us as successful as we could be in that environment.
So talking about the malls and Amazons, what are you thinking about all this convergence to residential? Like, where do you see that going? I know right now
let's put it this way. I don't believe in a world where Toronto has like 20 million square feet of empty space downtown, and that's okay, right? In some ways, I call that the Detroit model. Detroit got so unattractive, it became attractive, right? So in certain cases, certain things will become so useless, they'll become attractive for other things we can't even imagine right now. What exactly will happen? I don't know. I know Ontario has a housing shortage. That's not going away anytime soon. I know there's a lot of office space that needs to be repurposed. I'm not convinced that the whole remote working thing is going to be as consistent as it will. I just think we're human beings that will want to connect in some way, shape, or form. So again, we're involved in projects that people are changing their head offices. We don't, like our office itself, we're working on a design with them right now where before we had all kinds of cubicles because work used to be come here, sit in this cubicle, do your work. Well, that isolating alone work, you can do that anywhere now. We've already proven that, right? And so now it's more of a community, social collaboration space. So we have certain types of work. Like, go home and do it. You're going to stare at a screen alone for 40 hours, grinding through some drawings. Like, it's not highly collaborative. But when we have a kickoff meeting, when we have a strategy session, when we have like a brand new project that there's going to be a lot of like, how are you doing this? How are you doing this? That's social time, right? So even now we're repurposing our space. We're working with quite a few of the brands we work for. They're asking us to come in to survey their head office because they need to blow it up and redo it because people are working differently. So,
but the guys who are working for, let's say they have a building space before, are they downsizing it because of these changing work habits?
It's interesting.
Some
let's put it this way: like retail space is being repurposed an awful lot. So for the first time in my career, retailers are trying to make their front of house smaller and their back of house bigger. That's never happened. It's always been like maximize front of house. How small can we make that storage room? But now the storage room has a different use. Is last mile delivery, right? Small distribution centers, local. So now all of a sudden everyone's pushing out and saying, how big can we make that back room? How much of an integrated kind of space can we do? Like Walmart pickup, for example. Like they're looking to expand those kinds of things and they're stealing square footage off the sales floor. That's insane. That's never in my lifetime been a thought in retail, right? So what I know about 25 years of being in retail is, and this is kind of the commercial world, is every few years it's dying, it's dead, it's over. And then followed by it's never been better, it's never been hotter, it's going to grow forever. And here's the reality is my whole life through, I don't know, we can all relate to this. The news is always telling you the world is ending, right? It almost came true with COVID, that felt pretty real, right? But the world's always ending, it's always the worst and everything like that. So to me, I take the news, okay, it's this big. But I'm not going to stress about it because the reality is human beings have survived through things way worse than a little recession to a company. What's really going to happen to us? We're going to get uncomfortable, have to do a few different things. On a scale of human suffering, we're up for it, right? And I just kind of keep that mentality of if we're up for these challenges, building that resilience, building that muscle of like, what's the elephant in the room? Let's get at it. And it is, it's uncomfortable at first, I'm not going to lie. It takes some real, this sucks. And we said it in the room, we'd say, what's the elephant in the room? And everyone's like, we all know it, but it sucks to say it. Yep, I know. That's our job. The downside of leadership is you got to go to the scary place first. And then everyone follows you in.
So on this note, do you guys work with the government part as well, like trying to convince them what's happening in the real world? What are the laws over there?
We have.
Do you want to coordinate between your customers who live in the actual world, and those guys are working with the city and zoning bylaws? And they think office is still office in the same hall, and you need to have this office there and that spot. You guys coordinate, make them realize you need to change as well to the board.
I might need more than 3 days a week to do
that.
We haven't been involved in that kind of discussion. To be honest, we don't really get into a lot of discussions about advising retailers on strategically what to do. Like that's more your lane about this is why the design works. We don't really get into design. It's more the execution of what are you trying to do. Now that you already have that plan, we can help you implement that through your stores. Right? So we don't really get to that level.
anyone.
But what you said is very true about living. So it's not just you being resilient and you being open to ideas and open to change on a weekly basis, but it's the resilience is through the company. So
It's
it's
more
a
important.
it's a system that
Yes.
from you
Core
up to the
values.
90 of employees
Yes.
sort of understand that, and that comes through UOS to the practice.
Yeah, so I'd say I have to be the example of it because people are going to learn from not what I say, but from what I do. So I need to do it, and whatever decisions I'm faced with, I have to do things consistent with the manner that I expect everyone else to do. So if you're not up to that job, don't even bother telling your people what to do. That's not even that's leadership
Resilience is
101.
almost like a core value.
But no, I would say it's this. It's if I want the company to run without me, I have to train others to make decisions in a like-minded way. I need to surround that's why core values. I need people with a certain set of characteristics that are even going to be up for that game, right? Like things like do what's right, not what's easy. If someone's just taking the easy way all the time, are they ever going to really be up for solving a big challenge? Probably not. Right? So our core values are pretty intentional on these are the characteristics, the type of people we think are up for the kind of work we do. And then on the other side of things, it's reinforcing. I'll call it this. I want to give people as much autonomy and authority as I possibly can, not the other way around. I want to let go of the authority to make certain decisions and trust that they'll do it. And to be honest, when you get the right people in the right seats, I really haven't had trust issues. Like I'm not saying zero, but I'm not saying anything that's going to hurt. Right? Like you're not going to predict every moment of what people do. The only reason I can walk away and say, like the company runs without me, is I know who's there, and I know what they're up to, and I know who they are. Right? I know the types of decisions they're going to make because that's what we do. It's consistent. They have my trust because they've done it so many times.
We have 10 more minutes. I don't want to stop, but I want to know what's for DedON. What's next?
Yeah.
I won't go on the base part.
Maybe it's clarity.
Yeah,
As you said, 1 year, 3 years.
Yeah.
Not in terms of just business, but
Yeah.
this is a very interesting last 20, 25
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. So in that kind of 3-year range, we're looking at different areas that retailers touch. Design installations is a new area that we've just launched because again we have a way of thinking about how to get things done that seems to get unusually good results for our clients to the point where we're starting to look at the other ways we can take our thinking and our knowledge of the stores and do other things that we think we can reasonably run. So we've already launched an installations team with 8 full-time people. Right now we only have 2 clients that we do steady installs for, but now our sales team, now that we've done it, and even in the last couple of months that we've had this 8-person team running full, we've been doing projects and the clients are like, I have no idea how you guys are doing this. Right? Because we know their store, right? Like we're doing simple things like one part of our company is just they spend about 30 minutes looking at the plans of the store and like, do it in this order. That'll be the most efficient way to do it. And then we go and do it, and we're done on a Thursday night, and other companies that are running other stores are done Saturday night. And they're like, how do you do that? It's like, it's not an install thing, it's just a thoughtfulness. You just approach it with
So you
thoughtfulness.
almost created another line of business.
Yeah, totally. I actually think in 3 years that'll be our biggest revenue area by far. The commercial installation business, which is just essentially it's not construction, but it's once the building is built, it's moving all of the store displays and fixtures into the space and making sure they're set up, right? And fixture switch outs happen all the time, right? We did an RFP for Target that was $19 million a store, every store in the country. That was their budget for switch outs of fixtures. Just to give you a gravity of that. They're one retailer, right? We said no, we're not going to do that. It's way too much work. It's insane amounts of work. But the work is out there, and we tend to do a pretty good job with that stuff. So again, we're going to do it slowly. We get asked something like that, we just say no, thank you, that'll kill us. So again, we're being very intentional about what we take on and how fast we get into it. So we're branching out into installations and then slowly looking into some, again, complementary uses for our services. in, like, we're getting a lot more into warehousing and other kind of non-traditional retail or hospitality spaces. We're looking at taking drawings a little further down the line for companies like Macy's. They don't need stamped construction drawings. They're building like little fitting room partitions and things like that. Well, we can do CE sets that far, right? So we already have the trust of a lot of big companies to do this much of their work. We just did a big Revit conversion for Walmart. Walmart converted from AutoCAD to Revit. They started 5 years ago by saying we're going to do this, and then 4 years later we got a PO. So what we did was we built models of we surveyed every single store and built Revit models of every store in the country, and now they're up and running with Revit, saying it interacts with their inventory systems and tracking systems, and people would stop moving stuff in the store, it would actually work, but people move stuff in the store, and the model can't keep up with that. So there's that whole refresh program now for us to keep updating it.
So it's like a live.
Well, it's not live. We make it as live can be, but we're working on that. But those are kinds of things where, like, Revit conversions are a big area for us. Revit's like an architectural 3D software, at least just using the jargon here. So really what we're doing is looking at the core of what we're good at and how to expand it into complementary services or complementary industries. But we're being very careful not to step somewhere so fast just because the opportunity's big, because the number one thing we have is our reputation. That is, it opens so many doors. We can walk into a meeting and say, like, yeah, Home Depot, Starbucks, Full Ralph Lauren, like, the list goes on. People are like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like, who are we to not trust you? Fine, I get it. And then not only that, here's a list of names and numbers at those companies they're willing to talk to you about. Followed by those people, like, will call us, and we see them at a trade show, they're giving us hugs. Because in the end, my main reason to be in business, if you haven't figured it out so far, is I hate work stress. I hate it. It's dumb. So, like, the reason that we have a mutual friend that introduced us, but anyone who's stressed with, like, oh, there's too much or whatever, too much is not a real thing in my mind. It's lack of priority. There's always too much if you want to do too much. Always. It's about what's really important, what's going to move the needle when you're talking about losing weight or building a company or doing anything. It's how narrow can you get your view. I use this analogy. Anyone ever drive at like 200 kilometers an hour? Right? Yeah. All right. Okay. So if we're driving 20 kilometers an hour down the road, I can ask you questions about, like, you know, what did that billboard say? Yeah, I got it. At 200 kilometers an hour, you check out that billboard, you're dead. Right? Do you know how you're focused the faster you go? At 200 miles an hour, 200 kilometers an hour, the horizon is the only thing you can even afford to pay attention to. Because that thing in the distance, it comes up that fast. Right? And if you're running something, you're trying to do something important, my view of this is you got to narrow that horizon if you want to move fast. If you want to move super slow and have tons of issues, you do your 25 kilometers an hour, pay attention to everything. But that's as fast as you're going to be able to go. Accept that. And then just accept it. I don't think there's a right or wrong. I just think there's just to get real. Like, there's nothing worse than a gap between where you want to go and the things you're doing. They're absolutely not going to get you. And just closing that gap a little bit, that's my kind of business. That's my passion for life and business, I guess. I know no one asked that question. I just needed to get that.
So one thing, at least, we are happy that he's not good getting the design.
That's why I asked you that question. Yeah.
The one who designed.
No, I'm not going to. I know the world of problems you guys have. I don't want those. So you guys can keep it.
So that's a good on a professional side. Just want to understand any goals on personal side or how you plan next.
Yeah, I mean, we're building a new house that's 49 days away from closing. Not that anyone's counting. It's been 2.5 years. So up north in the country. Again, I love space. I'll say I kind of designed the house. I tweaked it quite a bit, and I'm breaking into it every week to check it out. They keep telling me to stay out. I'm like, there's no chance I'm staying out. Yeah, that's really good. Personally, when my youngest daughter, who's in grade 10, goes to university, my wife and our goal is 3 months out of the country. And I don't mean like somewhere cold, I mean somewhere hot. Right? That is the goal, that's the real life So part of what I'm doing now is making sure the company can survive without me for 3 months, right? So I love hot weather. I don't know why I live here. I love 40 degrees. I love heat. So I just got to get somewhere warm more.
You gotta go to Portugal then.
You
have to go to Portugal.
Yeah, I love it.
That's
They
really
don't
good.
like for that. You won't get visa now to India.
So I mean, and most of it is health maintenance is a big thing for me. Again, if I want to be capable when I'm 80 and 90, the work starts now in my mind. Strength, flexibility, and cardiovascular ability. I eat well as often as I can. I don't have any do not touch rules, I never have a burger or anything like that. Come on, let's get real. But things like when I come down, I make my lunches for when I come down to the office during the week. They're healthy. So I feel like lunch is the easiest meal of the day for me to control the quality of my food. So that's what I do. I buy these containers that fill me up, and I make them at home and bring them down, and away we go. So that way I'm not eating out. And I'm not eating out as poorly as I would if I was just down here and in a hurry to eat. So I just recognize the things that are going to do the most damage and try to patch those holes, health and wellness wise, and so it's intentional. Try to be as intentional as possible. Thanks.
See, one thing I would mention, which is we met earlier too, and anybody running their business, so mainly the service industry, the balance between enforcing your core values, vision, and trickling that down throughout the company, not being too rude or being too harsh is like, or I should say the employee retention part.
Yeah.
How do you find that balance? Right? It's quite difficult for anybody who is in service industry to kind of maintain that. It changes all the time.
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. I'm actually pretty abrupt and direct out of purpose, but it's the reason that I think that I don't get a negative reaction is because the reason I'm saying something is because I really deeply care about that person's work experience, not selling. That's why. And keeping the system running a certain way is the way that I operationalize that. So our employees, I can tell you this, we had an overtime problem 5 years ago. We were running a lot of OT. This year, I don't think we have a single hour of OT right now. Nothing. Zero. We solved it. Right? We just got to the root. Why overtime? We're working on too many things. Let's root it out. Right? So over time, if I can be direct, because now the people that know me know I'm being part of the problem, not them. And I want to make their work experience really, really good and tell them that. That's the reason I'm doing it. I'm not doing it because the rules are the rules and that's it. I'm doing it because I want this to be an awesome place to work. And if there's certain things that we all know hold that together, and if we veer away from that, then we're causing chaos that is going to get in the way of us doing other awesome things like advancing your career, getting new tools, doing all these things. And if you have the right reason to do something and you consistently do it, again, the other part of it is if you only say bad 1 time out of 10, it's inconsistent. You're being just mean. But if you say not right 10 times out of 10, people respect it. Different. There's something about consistency. People know. Like right now, I can tell you, if I'm in a room with a bunch of my teammates and someone says something, the whole room goes, "Oh, I'm going to say it before Steve does." Like, no, that's not the way we do it. And I love that because where it's coming from is a place of I want this to be great, which means we have to be hard on those problems. Great environments don't come from low standards or not having uncomfortable situations. You're going to have to work. It's going to have to be hard. That's what makes it so great. That's what I think people ultimately appreciate. So I don't beat around the bush. I can tell you, if I'm letting you go, here's how this goes. Okay, come on in. We're letting you go today. first sentence out of my mouth. Because I don't want to beat around the bush in some small talk. How's it going? Oh man, like this happened and this happened and this happened. Oh no, I can't let you go today. Like, but I really need to, right? Like I can't get there. Like that's just self-preservation. And I can't sit here and have small talk with like in my head I'm like, I'm about to fire you and you're like, oh hey, everything's great. Like I really love working here and then, oh shut up, right? It makes it so impossible. So again, I just get right to it. And then I say, okay, let me tell you why. Cat's already out of the bag, they already know. The bad news has been delivered. Then we just talk about the why, and in the end, I'm a big fan of the most graceful exit we can make. If we're letting you go, it's not personal. You're not a terrible person. It's not what this is. Right person, right seat. I'd be the wrong person in 99% of seats out there. That's the truth. Right? Like in our business group that Arash and I are part of, we have this, I think somebody said it years ago, the Latin word for unemployable is entrepreneur. Right? Like, and that's fine, like I get it, right? So I don't take it personally, so it just, I don't make it about the person, I make it about the issue. And if once everyone knows that, it's actually a pretty safe environment for others to do the same. Awesome. All this because I hadn't sleep at night. You can't, I don't know how people, if you're in this situation, let's talk about it one day, but I don't know how people go to bed when there's 80 or 90 people roaming around the planet, putting you in harm's way through liability and decisions and everything else every day. I don't know how you sleep. I couldn't. I just worried about everything all the time. So through these things that are consistent, it doesn't make it foolproof. It doesn't mean I have zero risk. It just makes it manageable. Right? Because as we said earlier, like the world's going to change. The world doesn't give a crap about what your plan is. Right? Like, let's grow. Recession. Oh, right? Let's go inside of COVID. Right? Like you just got to deal with the hand you're dealt and try to make the best you can. So it is.
Anything, guys? Pitch in. So what I do when I meet him, he absolutely tells me that we're meeting at 4, and then I don't let him see the what. Just go on and on. It's all good. It's all good.
I don't even know what word to reach.
Yeah. Yeah. I said I eat good at lunch. And salad at lunch. Yeah, I know. I have.
Well, anything from you, please?
No, thank you.
So, I think we are good in time, perfect. This 10 minutes over we've taken. I want to thank you on everyone's behalf, those who have come, participated, and you were recorded and put it on YouTube as well. So those who could not make it can go through it. Thank you so much.